Yep, we're live. And
We
there's
are.
no, yeah, there's no eyes. We
It's
can't.
on your Facebook page too now, Robert.
It is live now.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me get Jerry back on.
Okay.
Okay, folks. Thank you for coming on. We were having some technical difficulties, and we're trying to work those out using a tool that I thought I was familiar with, but obviously I it's changed a bit. But our guest will be on in just a second, and you should be able to see this on my Facebook page. But also uh, we're trying to stream it to the Lee Summit Facebook page and to the Allies for Racial Justice Facebook page and our group. I'm not sure if it's a page or a group, but it's being shared there. You can also should be able to watch this on my YouTube channel, but I can't check it, so you can check there if that's a better option for you. But thank you for coming on. And so, for those who are not part of Resurrection, my name is Robert Johnson. I serve as a location pastor at Resurrect Church of the Resurrection. Our home campus is in Leewood. I serve at the Lee Summit location, which is the ninth location in the greater Kansas City area. And then we also have a remote location, now our sister church, that's in Ohio. So there are actually like 10 locations, nine full locations, and then a church that uses our branding and our logo and our materials there in Ohio. And so we're glad to have you with us tonight for a great conversation we're about to have. And I'm just overwhelmed with joy and excitement about having a chance to share with you conversation with Jerry Mitchell, the investigative reporter. Let me just share with you a couple of things about Church of the Resurrection, just so you can have a sense of who we are. And I always like to do this when I'm doing public presentations, is that our purpose is to build a Christian community where non-religious and nominally religious people are becoming deeply committed Christians. And then I like to focus on our core values, particularly this one that says bridge building. We believe in building bridges. We welcome all the different, the new, the other. We're much better when the table is full. And I share that with you because I want you to be aware of who Resurrection is and some of our core values, and how we're a bridge building church. We're a church that welcomes all people. We're a church that tries to bridge the divides between people, whether that be racially, even religiously, and in all kinds of ways, build bridges between people, create places where people can connect and do community together. And that's a part of what we believe is our Christian calling. We believe that that's part of what it means to welcome strangers. So, welcome. Thank you for coming on. And I am going to introduce our guest and then bring him on. But before I do that, let me just highlight a couple of things. I do want to highlight our men's conference coming up this weekend on Friday and Saturday. If you don't live in Kansas City, you can join us online. And if you are local, guys, if you haven't signed up, please sign up. If you're from Lee Summit, I especially want you to sign up and come join us over there on Friday night and Saturday. And then I want to highlight coming up this Wednesday at most of our locations, we're beginning our Lenten study called Small Shifts, Big Faith. Want you to be aware of that and make plans. Go online. You can find more information at core.org about how to participate in our Lenten study. And then on tomorrow night, if you want to, you can join us by Zoom for the third session of this, Understanding Justice through a Christian lens. And you can sign up for that class and participate. We've done 2 previous sessions, and there are 2 more, but you don't have to have participated in previous 2 to join this one. You can go to core.org, type in Understanding Justice, and it'll pull the registration link up. You can sign up and participate in that. Let me slow down, Linda. And you can participate in that on tomorrow night. So just wanted to make you aware of those things. Now, let me tell you about our guest for tonight. I am so proud and pleased to get a chance to share with you something about Jerry Mitchell. Let me tell you, Jerry Mitchell is an award-winning American investigative reporter, best known for reopening and helping solve some of the most notorious unsolved civil rights era murder cases in Mississippi. More than 3 decades at the Clarion Ledger in Jackson, Mississippi, Mitchell used meticulous archival research, persistent public records requests, and relationship building with sources to expose long buried evidence and pressure authorities to act. His reporting played a pivotal role in bringing long delayed justice in cases including the 1963 assassination of Medgar Evers, the 1963 bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church, resulting in the killing of four little girls, the 1964 murders of civil rights workers James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner, and the 1966 killing of NAACP leader Vernon Dahmer. Mitchell's work demonstrated how investigative journalism can serve as a catalyst for justice long after crimes are forgotten. By uncovering sealed files from forgotten witnesses and contradictory testimony, he compelled state officials to reopen cases many believed were permanently closed. He has received numerous honors, including a MacArthur Genius Fellowship, awesome, the George Polk Award, and other national journalism prizes. His memoir, Race Against Time, chronicles his decades-long pursuit of truth in justice cold cases and reflects on the moral and emotional weight of that work. And let me just show you, that's the book. You can get a copy of that on any place where you can buy books. You can get a copy of that book, including it comes in a digital format and audio as well, read by the author. Now retired from daily reporting, Mitchell continues to speak nationally about investigative journalism, racial justice, and the enduring impact of the civil rights movement. And so, in sum, Jerry Mitchell stands as one of the most consequential investigative reporters in modern American history, an example of how patient, principled journalism can help bend the arc of justice towards accountability. Jerry, welcome, my friend.
Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate it.
It's so good to have
Very
you here.
kind.
People are excited. People are logged on, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from some of our folks. I do want to take a moment and thank my daughter, Kayla Johnson, and my wife, Linda, who are assisting me back in the background, making sure that we communicate with people and that things get put on screen as we want them to. But thank you. So, Jerry, thank you for doing this. And
Sure.
I know you have done these kinds of interviews and conversations, I'm sure, all over the country, but we're glad on behalf of Resurrection to welcome you to this conversation. This is something we are doing as a part of our celebration of Black history. And so let's start out. Here's where I want to begin. I want to jump right into a really heavy question here, and that is, what were how did a guy, and you grew up, I believe, in East Texas.
I did.
How did a guy who grew up in East Texas at some point move to Mississippi? What shaped you to become a person who carries this kind of compassion and sympathy for issues of justice?
Well, my mom and dad. I mean, is a simple answer. They've definitely, you know, both been, standing, from their Christian convictions have always been about justice, and so I'm just very grateful to them. They raised me right, and about justice, about race, about various things. So I'm so grateful for them, and and I thank God. I mean, it is not. I have to say, it's been a journey, Robert. It is not something I started the journey completely understanding or beginning at the beginning understanding that God was kind of using me through this process, and through the process changed me.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I'm very grateful. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, just out of curiosity, so you grew up, your mom and dad were Christians. You grew up in the church.
Yeah.
Just out of pure curiosity, what denomination?
Church of Christ.
Okay.
And of course there are, I guess, a lot of there's somewhat different flavors of Church of Christ around, but because each one is autonomous. So, But yeah, I've been in Churches of Christ since before I was born.
Yeah, yeah.
From the
So,
womb. From the
so,
womb.
so your story is super interesting to me because, so my wife and I lived in Houston, Texas, for 27 years, and we got to Houston out of Mississippi. So we coming from Mississippi, straight
And you went to
west
Texas,
on I-10, right? And so we drove through the lower part of East Texas, not the northeastern part,
yeah,
but
yeah.
in a place called Vidal. Was it Vidor, Texas?
Vider was Klan Central, man. If you went through Vider, that was a big Klan
That's,
hotspot. Yeah.
that's right. So we
Hey,
knew
Texas had the Klan too, so
for
don't let Texas off the hook about this one either. So
sure. And so, although we don't think of Texas as part of what we call the Deep South, it's Southwest.
it's not part of the Deep South, but where I'm from, that little northeastern corner is definitely part of the South. Probably a lot of Texas is very much the South. I mean, that's just the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think? So, and we see this even today. There are so many branches of Christianity, so many different
Oh, I
forms,
know. It's such a shame, isn't it?
and then you kind of get you can almost go geographically to pockets of the country, and you get and there's a brand of Christianity you get in, whether it's liberal Christianity or conservative, whatever, you get the pot. So, how did your parents? How did you guys connect justice, and which I, by the way, totally agree with. Like, I think justice, Christian faith and justice go hand in hand. Like, they
Well,
should be separated.
it's been a spiritual journey for me because my parents imbued these principles in me, but as I began working on these cases, I suddenly found myself diving into scripture. What does God think about justice? How does he feel about justice? What is justice? All these things, questions I had as I began to kind of look at scripture. And the truth is that God loves justice.
Yes.
It is a part of his very nature. And if we understand that, if we really want to dive deep into this, um, I began to understand not just justice too. Like, justice isn't just what happens in a courtroom. It's about how we treat each other. It's how we treat the least of these, and the Isaiah is, talks about this. What is, what do you know, so what, you worship me or you fasted if you're mistreating other people. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so that's a part of justice too. And then the other part, just for us as Christians, is this amazing miracle that happened at the cross.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just, we typically talk about the love, we typically talk about the grace, we typically talk about the mercy. But what we don't talk about a lot of times is the justice. God satisfied all those things at the cross.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Wow. Jared, that's so good. Because so when I first read your book, Race Against Time, I want to put that, Caleb, if you'll put the picture of that book back up again, I think it's there. There it is. When I first ran across this book, what stood out, one of the things that stood out to me that was just so profound, like throughout this entire journey of investigative journalism, digging into these unsolved murder cases of civil rights workers, there is an uncompromising conviction from you about right and wrong, and about truth, and about justice. And there's no wavering on that. It's like,
I know.
this is what's right. This is this is wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that spiritual journey helped me recognize that God was all for this. Like, this wasn't, I think before I kind of got into these cases, I kind of thought of my job as separate. This is wrong of me, but I did think that way. It wasn't that I, you know, um, you just kind of, as an American, we kind of compartmentalize things, and that's kind of what I did. And now I view my work even as, and by the way, I'm still working. I retired from the Clarion Ledger, but I'm retired from journalism.
Oh,
Still working on investigative reporting. um, that I considered a ministry. Like I consider my work a ministry. I don't consider my work something separate.
Yeah.
I consider my work part of, God loves justice,
Yeah.
and justice, you can't have justice if you don't have truth.
Wow.
And so you got to have truth first before you can have justice. And so I view that as kind of my role. And the reporters, the team that I work with, that's kind of our role. And we pray for this, by the way. Kind of fascinatingly, my reporters, none of whom are believers. Well, I had one that
Yeah.
was before, but
Yeah.
not right now. And but they're like, "Amen," at the end of the prayer, because
Wow.
we pray for God to show us the truth.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I think it's an important part of what you do. You want to find the truth. You want to tell the truth. We pray for that, and God's been faithful. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that you see that work as part of a call. I do think it's a calling, and the work you do is it's ministry. It actually
It
is.
is. It
And
is ministry. These families, I cannot tell you, these families are incredible.
yeah, yeah.
And I can tell you story after story of the families of
Wh-
God answering prayers and other
Yep.
things like that. It's amazing.
I can't wait for us to get into some of that and for you to share with people because as I've read your book and learned about you and the work you've done, and you've had some amazing meetings with people, like so from like deep racist people who were like deep
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah. Sat down
meat,
with the guy who killed Medgar Evers, and it was one of the creepiest encounters I ever had in my life.
and then but you also sat with Merle Evers as she's
Yeah.
working through the group. So just amazing. We want to, so
Just
Jerry,
love Merlin.
do this for us. Take us, and then we're going to get into the story. So take us from you go off to college, and so at what point did you choose journalism as a career? And then
Yeah, I decided to get in journalism. Like I was in high school when I discovered journalism. Well, it's kind of to back up even more. I blame my mom for me being in this profession because I started reading 3 newspapers a day when I was like 7 or 8 years old.
wow, wow,
And I was a voracious newspaper reader from the get go, and magazines too, and books. Like, I just was that. And my mom pretty much imbued that in me, had true crime books and other kind of stuff. I mean, I just devoured that stuff. And and then fast forward, I got in high school. I never really thought about reporting as a career, but I got in high school and there was I'd actually thought about being a lawyer before this, but I get in high school and somebody came in on career day and talked about journalism. And I thought, oh, yeah, okay. And so I took the course, became editor of my high school newspaper. And of course, I was in journalism in college too. And, to be honest, I was interested in the writing aspect of it to start with.
yeah,
And then when I got into it, and, and I, and this is how I got into investigative reporting. I've got a great story with it. So I was working for this small paper in Texas, and my editor was this kind of burned out, two pack a day smoker, Marlboro smoker, just like this the whole time. And so, what do you think you want to do in journalism, Jerry? It's like, well, I'm thinking about investigative reporting. And he goes, have you ever read All the President's Men? And I said, no, but I've seen the movie. He goes, read the book and study how they use attribution. And I was like, that was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got in journalism. I went and read All the President's Men and studied how, and so that kind of became my little Bible on how to do investigative reporting. It was very helpful advice. And so from that point forward, I wanted to do investigative reporting. So yeah, so I did it. I did it for the Hot Springs paper. I was kind of their investigative reporter for 3 years, and then I started working with Clarion Ledger. Started working for them in '86.
okay, okay.
Yeah. And I worked there till I left in 2019. So however many years that is, 30 something years. So anyway.
And now let's turn, because this is, and folks, as you all are listening, it gets even better. This is already
Oh
been
yeah, it's yeah.
So what was the turning point what turned on the light for you to do investigative reporting around the killing
These cases.
Yes.
Oh well, I you know, so I got assigned to go cover this movie called Mississippi Burning, which is kind of a fictional film about the real life killings of the 3 civil rights workers. And I happened to see it with 2 FBI agents who investigated the case and a journalist who covered it. At the point in that I'm 29 years old, so I have these 3 guys in my mind. These are 3 old guys, and now I'm old. Anyway, and so they're all. The movie is over with. I sat by one of them through the film and heard his like comments as it went along, or like, no, that didn't happen, and yeah, that happened, and all that kind of stuff. So after it was a press screening of the film, and everybody else, all the other reporters left. And it was just me and these 3 old men. And I'm like peppering them with questions. And my main question was, because I covered courts, I covered murder trials all the time. I go, wait a minute. There were more than 20 Klansmen involved in killing these 3 young men, and nobody was ever prosecuted for murder? And they go, no. And it was just like, that blew my mind. You know, there was a group of them that got prosecuted on the federal side, you know, conspiracy to deprive civil rights, but nobody ever got prosecuted for murder. I was just like, blew my mind. I'm 29 years old. I've been covering courts for years, and they tell me that. And I'm like, how did 20 something Klansmen get away with murder? And so we said it's the beginning of my education. And I got interested at that point. And then I had something that happened literally a month or so later, like these 2 events almost back to back, which was I found out about this agency in Mississippi called the Mississippi Sovereignty Commission, which is a state segregationist spy agency that existed from the 1950s into the 1970s in Mississippi. And I don't know if you're like me, but if someone tells me I can't have something,
Yeah.
I want it like a million times worse. So this agency had records, obviously, and existed, and the Mississippi legislature did away with them, abolished them officially finally in 77, and sealed all those records. I'm talking about like 183,000 pages of records. So when I found that out, my first thought was, there's something in there. I want to see it. I want to. Not only do I know there's something in there, but also I want it. I want it. And from that moment forward, I was obsessed with getting those records, and I eventually did. I eventually loaded the back of my little Honda hatchback with about 2,400 of those pages. Yeah.
Wow. So it was was at a viewing of Mississippi Burning. Kayla, Linda, one of you, or would you all put the title of that movie up so people can see?
Yeah, it's just Mississippi Burning, and that comes from it comes from the name the FBI gave to the case. Well, it was called Mississippi Burning, but they shortened it. So in all the FBI files, it calls it MIBURN, MIBURN. So yeah,
Wow.
It's the MIBURN case. Yeah.
And folks, we're going to tell you more about that entire case. That's going to be our last story. So I want to follow the stories as you.
Yeah, we can follow the story. So that was how I began to look into them. At the time, so once I got into the Sovereignty Commission records, I got into some of them. One of the early finds was that at the same time, this guy named Byron D. LeBecq was being prosecuted for the murder of Medgar Evers, who was killed in '63 in Jackson. This other arm of the state, the Sovereignty Commission, was secretly assisting the defense, trying to get Beckwith acquitted, and nobody knew that. And by the way, it was the governor was the one who headed that agency, by the way. So this isn't like some little stuck in a closet agency. And so I reported that October 1st of 89. At the time I reported, the odds were more than 1,000,000 to 1 against the case ever being reopened and prosecuted. There was no murder weapon, no evidence left, no court transcript, nothing in the files of any kind of value. But Myrlie Evers, the widow of Medgar Evers, believed, and she prayed, and some amazing things happened.
Wow.
A couple months later, Jackson police are cleaning out a closet, happen to find a box that contained the crime scene photographs of the killing of Medgar Evers, including the fingerprint of Byron D. LeBeckwith lifted from the murder weapon.
Wow.
A few months after that, Myrlie Evers shared with me her copy of the court transcript that she had saved in a safety deposit box. And a few months after that, the prosecutor in the case found a murder weapon in his father-in-law's closet, which sounds like I'm making it up.
Right.
It all really happened.
Unbelievable. Just amazing. When I first read that in your book, and I'm like, I can't believe, like,
yeah, I know. It's unbelievable. I'd be the first. If you were writing that as a novel, no one would believe it.
No one would believe it. No one would believe it. So I want to, because then I want to, before we get, because I want to go back and I want you to tell our audience what you know, what you learned about Medgar, the work he was doing. But before we do that, I want to try to set the context for people of what Mississippi was like when these crimes
and when this was going on.
When this was going on. So of course we know. So most people would mention Emmett Till, of course, right?
Yeah. So Medgar Evers investigated the Emmett Till case. So he was the Mississippi NAACP's first field secretary. And he was a full-time paid employee of the Mississippi NAACP, and he literally put like 40,000 miles a year on his car. He had an Oldsmobile, and the reason he had an Oldsmobile had a really high horsepower engine, so he could outrun people. I mean, that's what he did,
right?
And he needed it because he had to outrun people, including at night in the Delta and some of these remote places where he would go and work. Incredibly courageous, brave man. I can't say enough about him. I mean, he wound up very early on a Klan hit list. I mean, and he continued to do this work. And so, there's a great picture of the family right there. There's Rena to the left. That's his daughter. And then that's Daryl all the way to the right. And some neighborhood boy between. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of blowback from the white community. Somebody's asking from when I pursued the story for sure. Yeah, I got a lot of that. But anyway, yeah, I've gotten death threats, so it's that's that comes with the territory when you start working on the Klan stuff.
Jerry, can I tell you one of the things that every time I look back at these pictures with but not just Malcolm, but with Martin and even Malcolm X with Meg how young they were.
Yeah, like, every single one of these guys, Malcolm and Martin were 39 years old when they were assassinated. And Medgar was 37.
Wow.
I mean, just really snatched at the prime of their lives stolen, obviously, by hate.
And it's astonishing. Like, look at him here.
Yeah, the airport is named after him, by the way. Yes, it is.
Right. And how much he had aged in about 10 years from here to here. That looks like maybe not, but I thought that looked like a pretty good deal of, which I assume would have to do with the
there's a lot of, he had a lot of stuff to deal with. But back to the times, you got to say everything was segregated. Jim Crow laws were still in force. Brown versus Board of Education basically meant nothing in Mississippi at this point. Not yet.
Right.
It was beginning to take place, but in very minute amounts in Mississippi. I think Brown versus Board of Education was 54, and I think the first integrated class in Mississippi wasn't until 60. and
That's
that was
right.
on the Gulf Coast
That's right.
where the black population is incredibly low.
That's right.
You might have two black students at the most.
Right.
So so this is the world. I mean, Megger was, he had some of his best friends killed in 1955. Reverend George Lee was killed because he worked on voting rights. Lamar Smith was killed because he was voting on voting rights. Gus Courts was almost killed because he was working on voting rights. And obviously Megger was killed because he was working on voting rights. So there's something very fearful to the powers that be, the voting rights, the fact that they really don't want everybody to vote. That's kind of I'm talking about historically, that's been the case.
Right. For sure.
Anyway, it's a threat. And it was especially a threat in Mississippi because Mississippi had a higher African American population than anywhere else in the country. And 37%. So anyway, so that was what Megger was up against. There's a tremendous amount of fear. I mean, people, they didn't even want to be seen. Marley Evers told me this. They didn't even want to be seen on the same sidewalk with him, lest they be confused with someone working in this civil rights movement, because they knew you could be killed for that. And I'm not blaming anybody for doing that. I'm just talking about the reality of how, incredible it was. And so Megger obviously was, in 63, they wound up having boycotts. They wound up protesting outside. These all-white department stores wouldn't let black customers try on clothing to see if it fit, because they said, no, you can't try it on. You can look at it, but you can't try it. And you can buy it, but you can't try it on. And so that was the kind of garbage that was going on. Whites only restrooms, all that kind of Jim Crow stuff. Yeah. And voting rights, definitely people are threatening today. There's no question about that. That's what a lot of this stuff is. Attacks on, prosecuting people because they gave a bottle of water to someone. Is standing in line to vote. Are you kidding me? Really? You're going to prosecute someone for giving a bottle of water? I mean, it's amazing how low we've sunk. Anyway, so Megger, this is the context of Megger serving in the capacity he served.
Yeah. So you say, and he was investigating the death of Emmett Till.
He did. He dressed as a sharecropper and investigated that.
As a matter of fact, I want to remind people of who we're talking about. By the way, at our main location of Resurrection, Jerry, there at the Leawood campus, you've got to come out sometime. There's a huge stained glass. As a matter of fact, I think it may be the largest stained glass window in the world, and it was created by a guy who's the father of fusion glass. It's beautiful, and
I'd love to see it.
And it tells a story of the church history, Christian history, going from Eden all the way to modern times. And so when I got there, my boss was giving me a tour, and he says, Emmett Till and his mother in that window, right? And I'm like, you're kidding me. And I look up, and he points him out. And of course, tears are flooding, because here's this
man.
from deep south
in
Johnson County, Kansas. And I'm standing there, and these people, this predominantly white church, these people who engage in, who like you don't see a gap between justice and inner holiness and social holiness. And they are telling the story. They put the story of Emmett Till as a part of.
How about that?
Story.
But one of my great honors was to get to talk at length to his mom on a number of occasions. But there's Merle with Megger right there.
Right.
Incredible woman on her own. I think sometimes it's unfortunate that she gets labeled as the widow of, because she is her own. She is a force of nature. If you've gotten to listen to her ever, incredible speaker, way better speaker than Megger. And I'm not trying to knock Megger.
Sure.
She was powerful. Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
There's the I was looking for. That's
Emmett Till. That's the photograph that ran originally in Chicago Defender, but of course more famously known for running in Jet magazine. So everybody saw this. And the thing that's interesting to me about it is the black community saw this, and this was like a warning kind of thing. Am I right? This was like,
Yeah.
hey, you always need to be careful because look, here's what they did to Emmett Till, and it kind of became that. Or if some um, black child saw this photograph, they would go to the parents, and it would kind of become a moment of discussion and learning and that kind of thing. It was a rite of passage, for lack of a better term. This photograph became for the black community, and I have to tell you, I did not see that photograph
Yeah.
until I was 30 years old.
Wow.
I never saw it before then.
Yeah.
Never saw it. Didn't even know it existed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think my experience is not different from a lot of other
For sure.
white
For sure.
Americans,
For sure.
because it's all that stuff wasn't taught in schools.
Right. Right. Yeah. I didn't know it. So, and I was born and raised in Mississippi, in southern Mississippi, around Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Columbia. And we didn't, these things weren't talked about. Now, I will
Yeah.
say that, and my wife and I both talk about this. We do remember as kids, Jerry, getting these warnings from our aunts and uncles and parents saying, "Hey,
Right.
you better behave. Are they they're gonna do you like they did that kid up in North Mississippi?" I remember hearing
Right.
that from time.
Right.
But
Exactly.
I never knew who they were talking about. It was
Right.
when I was in college and I'm reading on my own, and I find all these things out. And I'm just amazed that all of that happened.
Yeah.
But then even in Hattiesburg with Damer,
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know about the Damer case until I was contacted by the Damer family. That was the first I knew of it. I knew nothing about it.
and then of course Rosa Parks says when she's interviewed years later, and they asked her what was she thinking about when on the
Thinking
bus,
about Emmett Till the whole time.
thinking about Emmett
Yeah.
Till at the time. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So describe for people the night of Medgar's assassination.
So let's step back to June 11th, 1963. President Kennedy is on television delivering his first civil rights speech, in which he says the grandsons of slaves are still not free. And so Burley Evers lets the kids stay up. They're all watching President Kennedy's speech. It's a huge deal. It's been announced. He's going to talk. And of course, he's wanting to pass a civil rights bill. And Medgar watches it with some of the other kind of civil rights leaders locally. They're with the NAACP. And then and they keep meeting and talking and stuff. And then he finally heads home. It's after midnight now. And so they had a station wagon. Early drove a station wagon with the three kids now. And Medgar pulls up, behind her car. And as Medgar, he opens the car door, and as he takes about a step past the door, he's hit by a rifle, a bullet. And the bullet actually goes through him, through a window, through a wall, hits the refrigerator, and lands on the counter. I mean, that's how powerful that bullet was. It's from a 30-06 rifle.
Yeah.
And Beckwith had been waiting there for hours. They found just cigarettes all around. If they had DNA tests back then, they would have.
Right.
They could have nailed him with that, but at the time they didn't, obviously. But yeah, there were cigarettes all around. He had kind of carved out a sniper's nest where he could through the trees so that he could not be seen and yet shoot Medgar in the back. So, and of course, Murley and the children heard the shot, and were actually had been taught to know the difference between a car backfiring and a shot. So they rushed outside and screamed and Rena said, "Daddy, get up. Daddy, get up." Never did.
Yeah, that's every time I hear that story, the girl, 'cause with my two daughters, you think the little girl saying, "Daddy, get up." I mean, I've heard those words from my girls. I mean, I wasn't just from sleeping in the, we on vacation and then Daddy
Oh
get
yeah,
up,
sure. Daddy, get up. Yeah.
and just to think about that, that her standing there. So then I want to pit up, and so they find out later this is the guy that was at least arrested or accused of.
He was arrested like 10 days later. Yeah. They found his fingerprint on the rifle.
Yeah. Now, Jerry,
But you had two all white juries, and all male, I might add, because they wouldn't let women serve on juries either.
Yeah.
So it was all white, all male juries, did not convict him, and so you had two hung juries, and so he just walked free. These trials were in '64. The assassination was '63. The trials were in '64, and Beckwith walked free and went home and was celebrated by some as a hero. Got a free steak dinner that night.
Yeah.
And when he ran for office in '67, he called himself, his slogan was he was a straight shooter.
Yeah.
I'm just sick. Just sick.
Just sick. That was, and I know this they visualized this in the movie Mississippi Burning. You talk about it in your book that was just sense among the KKK and other associated racist groups that you could that no white man would ever be convicted of murdering a black man in Mississippi.
Well, they weren't. I mean, they just went for years. I mean, think about all the various killings. Reverend Lee, Lamar Smith, Emmett Till. I mean, there's like a long list of people who were lynched or killed for, I mean, decades and decades.
Yeah.
I mean, Ida B. Wells has been writing about this since the 1890s or whatever, 1900s. Yeah. So, yeah.
Kayla, Linda, would you all put that in? Ida B. Wells, that's a name that I
and I'm telling you, one of my heroes. I love her.
One of my heroes, just an amazing, amazing, amazing American. You tell in your book the story about how on the during the first trial of Beckwith, that the governor.
Yeah, the governor came in and shook hands with Beckwith, or the former governor. He wasn't that current. He had just been replaced, I guess, but he was still known, and he came in and shook hands with Beckwith. Yep. Absolutely.
So were you there? You were in the court the day when later, after you've done your investigative reporting, and they retried the case, you were there the day that he was finally convicted.
Yeah, I was there. And
tell us about that day.
It's like when the word guilty rang out. And by the way, let me just tell a tiny bit about Beckwith. Absolute most racist person I ever had a serious conversation with, because I talked to him for like 6 hours. And just N-word this, N-word that, thought Adam and Eve were white people. I mean, I just can't begin to tell you how many racist things he talked about. But when the word guilty came in, you could literally hear the waves of joy as they cascaded down the hall till it reached a foyer full of people, black and white, just erupted in cheers. And I just felt chills.
Wow.
Because the impossible had suddenly become possible.
Yeah. Wow. Before we leave Medgar and Beckwith, you've got to tell the story about the day. And I know we're back and we just did the conviction that he was convicted. But go
about Beckwith.
Yeah, where you drive to his home and
I drove to his home in Signal Mountain, Tennessee, which is outside of Chattanooga. Spent about 6 hours talking to him. Like I said, absolutely most racist person I've ever spoken with. N-word this, N-word that. And he's pretty much an equal opportunity racist. He hated all non-white races. Claimed they were mud people, which is part of Christian identity, which is this white supremacist religion. People don't know anything about this. And you could look it up online. Believe me, there's plenty of stuff online about it now. Yeah, it was really incredible. And then so I spent about 6 hours with him. You know how sometimes you feel like if you talk to someone, you're talking to someone at a certain point, you feel like you need a bath once you get done. And that's what it felt like. But
Yeah,
anyway, it was dark by the time we finished.
yeah.
And he insisted on walking me out to my car. And I'm like, really, that's okay. I can find my way. So he walks me out to my car anyway, gets me out and just says, if you write positive things about white Caucasian Christians, God will bless you. If you write negative things about white Caucasian Christians, God will punish you. If God does not punish you directly, several individuals will do it for him.
Wow. Wow. You had to be terrified.
Well, his wife had made me a sandwich. I think you can guess what I did with the sandwich after that.
I've been wanting to ask you that question forever. Like, did you eat that sandwich?
No, I did not eat the sandwich. That sandwich went out the window. It was not in my car very long.
So Jerry, you grew up in East Texas, and you talked about how your parents formed you and how you came to your understanding of Christianity. What was it like to sit there and hear somebody speak with such conviction about this understanding of Christianity that was
I was
radically?
just, well, I kept asking him. I mean, because I am a Christian, I kept asking him, well, where, like, I'll give you an example. Like one point, he said that God hates mongrels. He called Medgar Evers a mongrel. He said God hates mongrels. And I'm like, where is that in the Bible? You know, because it's not. I know the Bible well enough to know it's not in there. And I don't know. This is be like only a joke that certain Christians even are going to get, but it's true. I don't mean it as anything made up. I just mean it's what happened.
Right.
But he had a Nave's Topical Bible. Do you know what I'm talking about? That has like,
Yeah.
you can look up verses, look up a topic like grace
Right.
or, forgiveness or, love, and it'll have all these scriptures. It'll just list scriptures that go with that particular topic. And so he picked up his Nave's Topical Bible and he's
Oh.
flipping through it looking for mongrel. And I'm over here just dying laughing without laughing out loud. Like in my mind, I'm just dying laughing because I know it's not in there. I just know there's no entry for mongrel. I'm sorry.
Wow. And then this is jumping ahead a little bit to the Damer case. There was another guy that you got to know and spend some time around and just observe closely. You talked about some of his behavior on court day, and that was Sam Bowers.
Yeah. I wish I got to spend more time with Sam Bowers. He wouldn't sit down with me. I talked to him by phone a little bit. And but yeah, boy. Of course, he was the head of the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, which is responsible for at least 10 killings we know of in Mississippi. He was the one who ordered the attack on Vernon Damer and his family. Vernon Damer basically died defending his family from a Klan attack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Tell the story.
incredible.
Tell the story, Jerry, of what happened with that attack.
Yeah, what happened tonight? So here's what happened. So Vernon Damer was a farmer, businessman, NAACP leader, totally dedicated to voting rights. And he Klan didn't like that, attacked him and his family in the middle of the night. I mean, horribly frigid night, January 10th, 1966, about 2 o'clock in the morning, and set their house on fire, began firing their guns into the house. Vernon Damer woke up, grabbed a loaded shotgun he kept by the side of his bed for protection, ran to the front of the house, began firing back at the Klansmen so his family could escape safely out a back window. Unfortunately, the flames of the fire seared his lungs and he died later that day. A few weeks later, in the mail came his voter registration card.
Wow.
He had fought his whole life for the right of all Americans to be able to vote and never been able to cast a ballot himself.
Wow. And so Sam Bowers ordered that attack.
He ordered that and never been convicted. Been tried, but never convicted. And so he was retried in There's a lot. I mean, I could tell so many stories, you know that. But to cut it, to be quick about it, he was convicted in 1998 and sentenced to life in prison, just like Byron Deal Beckwith.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go to, because I want to make sure we make time for
Yeah, I know you want to get to all of them, so I'm trying to be quick about it.
so talk about your involvement with the and Yvette, thank you for your question. We're gonna come to and kind of get Jerry's reflections on our current times and before we end our conversation after we get through the stories. Jerry, as a matter of fact, let's pause here because I know one of the questions I get often when I'm digging into this stuff, and I believe I'm a huge history buff, and
Right.
I interpret current times out of the context of what I understand about history. Like I
Oh,
don't
you have to. You
everything
have
that
to.
you have to, right?
History goes in concentric circles. In
Wow.
other words, like
Wow.
mankind does not change that much. And if you understand that concept, then you can read, for example, the Bible. You can read the Bible and go, oh, this
Yep.
sounds just like today.
That's
Like I'm going through the prophets right now. I'm in Jeremiah,
same.
and it's amazing how many I'm like, oh, that sounds like today. Oh, that sounds like today. Oh, that sounds just like today. So we tend to do the same things over and over. This is the way I address that question, by the way, because I'm in Mississippi, the Bible Belt,
Yeah.
and some people will say, um, well, this history, it's uncomfortable to kids. You're upsetting the kids to talk about, these things. And so I'll just ask them, I'll say, well, do you want your kids to read the Bible? And they'll go, well, yeah. I said, well, there's some really tragic stories in the Bible. You
And
sure, really, are you sure you want your kids to read that? And they go, oh, yes, yes. I want to. And why do you want your kids to read the Bible? Of course, more than what, 4/5 of the Bible is just history, is what it is.
right.
Um, and I said, and the reason you do is because you want them to learn from that history.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's no different today.
Right.
It's no different today.
Yeah.
Murley Evers has said it. The reason we keep repeating our past is we don't know our past.
Yeah. Wow. Such a profound statement. And I so agree. I so agree. As a matter of fact, when I look at our country now, like and all the challenges that we face now, none of it. I mean, it's the recycling of stuff we've been through, and if you
Oh
know
yeah,
that,
yeah.
then
It's the same stuff.
it's the
It
same.
just look it's slightly different. I mean, that's why I say concentric circles. It's not the same circle. It's a concentric circle. So it's not, a Jim Crow law per se now, but some of the same permutations are taking place today in
Yeah.
terms of treatment of people. Um, you know, it's hard not to reflect backward when you start to see American citizens killed on the streets
Yeah.
just because they're exercising their right to protest.
Yeah.
You can't help but think, yeah, this kind of feels like what's happened before.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. So, Jerry, let's turn now. What was your involvement with the reopening or the additional convictions in the case of the 4 girls who were killed in the?
Yeah, 4 little girls. The
Yeah.
FBI had already reopened the case when
Okay.
I came along. We were the Clarion Ledger where I was working. We were just kind of looking at other cases. What other cases are out there? What's being looked at? That was one we knew about. I mean, I knew about it. FBI had already reopened the case. So after Bowers was convicted, I went over. I interviewed Doug Jones. I kind of did somewhat of a profile on him, plus the case itself, and interviewed one of the last living suspects in that case. His name is Bobby Cherry. I just talked to him briefly by phone. It was just a story, just kind of saying, hey, here's what's going on with this case. And months later, his wife emails me and says, Bobby wants to talk to you. So I'm like, okay. So it turns out he didn't live far from where I grew up, which is a schizophrenic town of Texarkana. So I drove over from Texarkana to Texas I mean, from Mississippi to Texas, and he lived near Tyler, Texas, where he lived. And so took him and his wife out for barbecue. You know, I guess that's what you feed Klansmen. I'm not really sure, but anyway, we had barbecue. We talked, and he's like, "I didn't have anything to do with that church bombing. I left that sign shop. The sign shop is where the Klan made the bomb. By the way, it's only 2 blocks from the church." So I left that sign shop at 9:45 because I had to get home and watch wrestling. And he pulled out this sworn statement from this woman. Yes, I remember that night where we're all sitting around watching wrestling. So get back to the newsroom next day. One of the simple things as a journalist that we say in the South, in terms of starting in journalism, if your mama tells you she loves you, check it out. So that's just kind of a rule of journalism. And so I was asked Susan Garcia, our librarian, hey, check with the Birmingham News and just see what was on TV that night. Claimed he's watching wrestling, And so Susan comes back to me the next day and there wasn't any wrestling on TV for him to be watching. So I wrote a story. He got arrested.
Wow. That story, each one of the bigger story. I mean, of course, for example, we're going to turn to Shriner Goodman and Cheney. One of the riveting details about that story is when they finally found out where the bodies were buried, they had been searching in rivers and creeks, and they were finding bodies everywhere of Black people who had taken missing, but they had been decapitated or killed and thrown into the river.
Yeah, you had Henry Hezekiah and Charles Eddie Moore were both killed by the Klan, and their bodies were found while they were searching for the 3 civil rights workers. Yeah, and those killings never got prosecuted until after the Mississippi after the conviction in the Mississippi burning case. So it's interesting. Yeah.
So the story of Emmett Till is heartbreaking because he was a kid.
14. He just turned 14. He just turned 14.
And I've heard this part of the story is that there was a guy who actually they brought in as a witness who said he passed by the barn that night as they were torturing him.
Yeah, Willie, and now I can't think of Willie's last name, but anyway, Willie, yeah, he was the one who saw that, and there were actually other witnesses too, but they called him kind of the line I've heard about him is he was an ear witness. He wasn't an eyewitness; he was an ear witness. So he heard Emmett Till being beaten, heard the screams.
And that's heartbreaking. Then Medgar Evers, as a father of young kids, and his daughter standing over him saying, "Get up, Daddy." But I don't know.
It's just real. Oh, it's heartbreaking. It's just
heartbreaking. Terrible. Shriner Goodman and Cheney. But the story of the 4 girls in Birmingham in the church.
I mean, that's the one that just breaks your heart.
4 kids at Sunday school, Jerry.
I know. In the church, no less. So when they did the trial, Doug Jones and his team, prosecuted that case. Actually, they kind of made the church another victim, if that makes any sense.
Right.
They made it an attack, not just on these girls, but an attack on the church, because that church was kind of a staging area for civil rights activity, because it was a downtown church, and really just right across the street from Kelly Ingram Park, which is where we've all seen the fire hoses and the dogs and all that kind of stuff. That was directly across the street from the church.
Park, right.
Yeah.
So
now there's a little statue it's a beautiful statue to the 4 little girls. Yeah.
We took a group from Resurrect. So we started doing these national through our adult education, and we take people on trips so they go overseas to Holy Land, but we've gone on these civil rights trips. And I took 2 years ago, and we were in Birmingham, and we went into the church and we did the tour, Jerry. And then at the end of the tour, we enter this little room and they show a film of the day of the funeral.
Yeah.
3 of the girls, Dr. and MLK preached.
Dr. King did the eulogy.
eulogy. And so they played a soundbite from the eulogy, and it's the part where he says something to the effect of, "Good night, sweet princesses. May the angels escort thee to thy eternal." And my wife and I were there, and I heard these people from Johnson, mostly from Johnson County, who had come on this trip with us, and they were weeping.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 I mean, that's the heartbreaking one.
Yeah.
And one of the, for me, has been just so great has been to get to know all these families.
Yeah.
And Lisa McNair, who's Denise's younger sister, I've gotten to be friends with, and she's just spectacular. Great person. Yeah.
Wow. So let's go now to Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney.
And by the way, Bobby Cherry was convicted and given 4 life sentences, one for each one of those girls. So,
wow.
And they play, and they introduced the TV logs to show there was no wrestling as part of the evidence. Yeah,
it's part of the evidence. So Freedom Summer 1964. And the guy by the name of Bob Moses, who was a part of that, who was leading.
Oh man, one of my heroes, Bob.
Great, amazing human being. And part of what happens is that they're trying to get Black people to register to vote in Mississippi because they couldn't vote. They had all
couldn't vote at all.
You want to talk a little about kind of the barriers that were in place for that? Voting?
Yeah. So, it was historic. This is what they did. I'll try to make it brief. 1890 Constitution. So there was actually more African Americans than white Americans in Mississippi during this period of time, around the time of the Civil War.
Yeah.
And after. And so they were and so suddenly Black men could vote.
Yeah.
And that changed the equation. And the white men couldn't, so some of them couldn't, because they had fought in the Civil War, and they weren't willing to sign a loyalty oath to the Union. You had to sign a loyalty oath in order to be able to vote again, which is understandable. You don't want to, you've just been fighting against your own country. I think it was rather kind, just to say, okay, we just want to make sure you're going to be loyal.
You be able to vote again. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty kind, actually. They could have locked them all up in prison, I'm not saying they should have. I'm just saying they could have.
Right.
And so, anyway, so whites whites by hook and crook began to retake power, and eventually through corruption, stuff in the ballot boxes, through violence against African Americans to keep from voting. There was one Aberdeen, they set up a cannon in case someone Black decided they were going to go vote. They were going to shoot them with a cannon. I'm just crazy stuff. And but eventually they go, we're tired of this kind of corruption stuff. Let's just put it in the law. And so in 1890, they adopt a new constitution, and that which establishes, where you had to, basically pass this constitutional quiz, and essentially poll taxes. So those two things were set up. And then 2 years later, when the Mississippi legislature met again, they basically took everybody off the voting rolls. And of course, they used the circuit clerk as kind of a gatekeeper. So you have these white circuit clerks in place to prevent anyone Black from getting on the voting rolls. And that continued on through the 60s, into the 60s, until the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965. That was really what changed that.
Yeah. I was watching a documentary called Freedom Summer. And then
it's a great documentary. The Stanley Nelson's documentary?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's great.
I wonder if one of y'all will put that name of that documentary up.
It's just called Freedom Summer. It's just called Freedom Summer. I can tell you that. Yeah.
And the guy there, they interview a guy there. He's a white guy, and he says that we saw what happened in redoing Reconstruction when Black people were allowed to vote. And he says, and basically, over my dead body, will we allow that
Oh
to
yeah,
happen?
exactly, exactly.
Right. And so, which is, and to peek a little into today's time, that's why I get deeply concerned when I see these the maneuvers that are happening to really disempower people to vote, and not just the people who are doing it, but also just the lack of awareness among people in general about what, like, do you understand what's happening here and why that, like, why they
Yeah,
don't, why people don't want people to vote, like what's going on, what's the history behind
people
that?
want to hold. People want to hold power. It's
People,
all about power. It's all
yeah,
about power.
yeah.
Yep.
And so Freedom Summer happens, and so some kids from the North, in college kids,
Yeah, there are about 800 to 1,000 college kids who came down from up north or out west, and Andy Goodman was among those who came down, was part of that training. In fact, you can watch some of the footage that was taken there at the training in Oxford, Ohio, and see Andy Goodman himself in a couple of shots. Uh, and they were training. They were training them for nonviolence. Like they'd teach them how to, you know, to basically ball up so you couldn't be hurt as badly when you're beaten and different things like that. They were training them.
and they were there in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Yeah, so they got news that the black church where Mickey and James had already gone and talked to them, and they were willing to set up what they call a freedom school, to teach black kids history, to teach black kids, English. I mean, all sorts of subjects, ideas to help from an education standpoint. And that's what they were using these summer volunteers for. They were going to come in and help teach. And so they had already agreed, this church had already agreed, Mount Zion Baptist Church in, or Methodist Church, pardon me, in Neshoba County. And the Klan found out that there supposedly been civil rights workers there, and they went and beat members, burned it to the ground. And so that news, this happened on June 16th of 1964. News makes it to Oxford, Ohio, that this church has been, where they visited, it, been burned to the ground. Well, they feel horrible, and they feel somewhat responsible too, because, hey, we went there and now it's burned down. Oh man, we feel awful. So they drove back. The training wasn't over with, and Andy joined them. So it was Andy, James, Mickey, Rita, Mickey's wife, stayed there to help continue the training, and then and there were a few others that came back with them as well. And so that we're working they're working out of Meridian, which is in East Mississippi, for those that don't know the terrain here. And so the very next day after they got there, they went to Neshoba County to investigate the fire and interviewed members who were beaten and other things like that. And as they were starting to leave town, they were intercepted by Deputy Cecil Price, who arrested them and jailed them. And so then after 10 o'clock at night, he released them into the hands of waiting Klansmen. And so they were taken out and killed, shot dead and one by one. And yeah, what happened is, okay, so they were in the station wagon, and then somebody else starts driving the station wagon, and they're put in the back of the patrol car, Price's patrol car. And so there was a guy named Alton Wayne Roberts, Klansman, whose brother, by the way, worked for the police department in Meridian.
Wow.
A bunch of the people in the Meridian Police Department were Klansmen. And that was the way the Klan worked back then. They always wanted to be involved in law enforcement, both for their help and for their cover, And so Alton Wayne Roberts, who's this big, he was like a bouncer type guy, 6'4", pulls Mickey out of the back of the car. And he said, "Are you that N-word lover?" And Mickey says, "Sir, I know how you feel." And Alton Wayne Roberts puts the gun to his chest and pulls the trigger.
Wow.
And Mickey drops dead. Then he grabs Andy, pulls Andy out, doesn't say a word, kills him, shoots him right in the chest. Well, this is as best we know. It appears this is based on evidence that we got. James didn't wait to get grabbed out of the back seat. He took off.
Oh, so
I mean,
he
he
ran,
ran.
right?
He ran. Oh, absolutely. And he was smart for trying to get out of there. He ran, and then of course all the Klansmen opened fire. And he was shot, I think, 9 times or something like that. And of course the famous line of that is where the Klansman came over and basically delivered the fatal shot and said, "Well, y'all didn't leave me anything but an N word, but at least I got me an N word."
Wow. Wow.
And then the Klansmen took the bodies, loaded them in the back of the station wagon, drove it to this remote dam, where the dam was just being built. So it was like a dam. It wasn't finished, and buried their bodies like 15 feet down, and that's and that they weren't found for 44 days. The FBI, it's really a miracle they were found.
Yeah.
It wasn't. The way we found out was a guy named Mr. X, and that's a whole other long story. But essentially, he told the FBI where the bodies were buried. Yeah.
There was a guy who was out of the Italian mob. You write about this in your book, who helped with the Dahmer case.
Yeah, it helped in the Dahmer case. Yeah, the Gregory Scarpa. Yeah, yeah.
Did he help with the Sharona Goodman and Cheney case?
No, that gets conflated. But he had, to my knowledge, he had nothing to do with that case.
Wow. And then at what point did it register? Like, were you able to influence that process of bringing that case to justice? Were you able to?
So what happened? So here's what happened. Remember I told you, if someone tells me I can't have something, I want it a million times worse.
Yeah.
Well, there was so Sam Bowers, who never ever gave interviews, I found out, gave an interview with the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, but it was sealed. Well, I wanted that interview. So it ended up being collected as evidence, subpoenaed as evidence in the Dahmer case. And so one of the agents who worked on that case was a very good source of mine, Bill East. And so after Bowers was convicted, I asked to see it. And he said, sure. So I went over, and he let me read the whole thing.
Wow.
Wouldn't let me make copies, but let me read it and take notes.
And then
in that interview, he talked about the Mississippi burning case. And of course, there was a federal trial. Bowers was one of 7 Klansmen who got convicted on federal charges. The rest of the 18 Klansmen walked. But Bowers, in talking about this case, said he was quite delighted to be convicted and have the main instigator of the entire affair walk out of the courtroom a free man. And he was referring to a guy named Edgar Ray Killen, or as he's known locally, Preacher Killen.
Yeah.
So I called Preacher Killen up. And we talked for quite a while. And finally, at some point, he said, there's some guy in Jackson just keeps stirring things up. And I didn't have the heart to tell him it was me. So I took him and his wife out for catfish. We ate catfish, and asked him about his role. Did you have anything? I asked him, do you have anything to do with the killing of 3 civil rights workers? He said no. I said, what do you think should happen to people that were responsible? He said, I'm not going to say they were wrong. Wow. And they proceeded to tell me the story about himself. When Dr. King was assassinated, at that moment in time, the FBI had no idea who did it. So they kind of sent agents around to what you might call the usual suspects, one of them being Preacher Killen. So 2 agents show up at his doorstep, asked him about his whereabouts on April 4th, 1968. He refused to talk about it, but agent left his card.
Wow.
So time goes by. One day, Preacher Killen picks up the card, calls the agent, wants to know who killed King. And the agent's like, why do you want to know? And Killen says, man, I want to shake his hand.
Wow.
So sometimes people will see these older men going to trial or going off to prison, and they'll say to me, Jerry, why don't you leave these old men alone? And you know what I tell them? These are young killers.
Yeah.
They just happen to get old.
Yeah. Wow.
Edgar A. Killen was convicted on the exact anniversary of the killings, June
Wow.
21st,
Wow.
in 2005.
Wow. Wow. The hand of God is at work. What is
Tell me
the
about it. God's timing, man. God's timing is amazing. That's all I got to say.
the more
And I don't know that that community would have been ready much before that, if that makes any sense. Like I think that community had to be ready.
Yeah.
Before it would have convicted him.
Yeah. So it's 8:50 and we're gonna want to wind it down, but I want to give you space now just to I know you had written a piece. I'd like for you to share that just as a way of drawing this to a close. And
and then happy to
add about this. Yeah,
I just wrote this essay. I was just kind of inspired to write this essay not too long ago, so I'll read it. And I think that I'm fine with that being my last words. But here we go. From here, you can see the end of America, the end of kindness, the end of decency, the end of democracy. Truth is no longer about facts. It's about feelings. Justice is no longer about what's right. It's about making sure our side wins. We no longer mourn with those who mourn. We mock them. No longer love our enemies. We punish them. We no longer believe in the kingdom of heaven. We believe in the kingdom of self. Our nation once breathed to life through freedom now favors fear-mongering. Freedom of religion has given way to freedom to ridicule. Freedom of speech has given way to the freedom to hate. Freedom to protest has given way to the freedom to hurt. So what is the biggest reason we are sliding toward the end? Not immigration, not Christian nationalism, not a political party, not the president. America is nearing an end for a simple reason: our sins. We've traded godliness for gaslighting, humility for pomposity, kindness for cruelty, and piety for partisanship. We've traded the love of others for the hatred of those who aren't like us. These days, we think salvation comes from sports teams and grace comes from winning the lottery. We once believed in the Constitution. Now we believe that might makes right. We once believed in the land of opportunity. Now we believe only some people deserve it. We once believed that lifting others would lift everyone. Now we believe in building walls. We are no longer willing to gaze in the mirror and realize we are the problem. Instead of accepting responsibility, we blame others. We curse our neighbor instead of building community. We stoke the fires of fear instead of pursuing peace. We have blood on our hands and act like the victims deserved it. We've seen God bless America and cuss the driver who cuts us off in traffic. We declare our nation is the greatest in the world, but we refuse to open our hearts to those in greatest need. America has been conquered without firing a shot, conquered by fear, conquered by loathing, and yes, conquered by sin. Can America change course before it's too late? The answer is up to us.
Wow. Wow, Jerry, that's beautiful and so powerful. Wow. Is it any way that someone just asked the same? Where can we read this? Can we see?
It's on Christian Chronicles website. I can grab a link, and there's probably some way to share that, I guess. Anyway,
Linda, can you look for that link?
it's a Christian Chronicle in my name, and maybe America is a search term.
Okay, so my daughter, Linda,
You should be able to find it. That should be out there.
and so they're going to find that and they're going to post that. But
Yeah, and if for some reason somebody wants to repost that somewhere, I'm sure they'd get permission. So I don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
Just,
I love what-
they can ask you, and I'll pass it on and let people know.
Okay. So in that piece, what I love so much is, and I think we all do this. We all have somebody in the country that we're pointing the finger at and we're blaming. And where you said that it's not it's us and our daily behavior and our lack of kindness and compassion and lack of basic decency with each other on a daily basis. I love that. And I think that because that puts all of us in a place of self-examination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I think too about Mississippi, for example, because Mississippi has kind of become a symbol for a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And I think Mississippi, if we really want to understand Mississippi, it needs to, yeah, there it is. It needs to be a mirror, not just something we throw things at, but a mirror and really realize Mississippi is America.
Wow.
And I mean, that's the thing, if you really think about it.
Right.
It's kind of like I'm not to put too fine a point on it, but for those of us as Christians, for sure, the Bible, if you really want the Bible to be effective in changing your life, it has to become a mirror. It can't just be a tool by which you can point fingers at somebody else. It's got to become a mirror to your own life.
Yeah.
And then you start to go, oh, wow. you read passages and you go, oh, wow, yeah, I'm guilty of that too. Wow. And you read it with humility instead of pride.
Right.
And instead of thinking of, well, I know who needs to hear that. Well, this is so-and-so needs to be reading this, instead of having the attitude, realize I'm the one that needs to read that.
Yeah. And that's almost, somebody's going to think we planned that, because that's almost a perfect setup for the Lenten season, Jerry.
Yeah, it is. It's a perfect thing to think about and talk about.
Yes.
Talk about our own role in these things, because these things don't happen in vacuums. There's a reason that certain politicians rise to power, and sometimes that politician becomes the lightning rod. But we're missing the point.
Right. Yes. So Jerry, as we close, folks, I want to let you know, we will see about 50 of us will see Jerry, if everything goes well, and things want. We'll see Jerry in the fall. We're taking a civil rights trip, and last time we went to Alabama and Georgia, Jerry. This time we're coming through Arkansas, and then we're going to go through the Mississippi Delta, and then
good.
And then when we're in Jackson, there we'll spend time with you there. That's scheduled.
Please do.
Yeah, and then we're going to go down to New Orleans and do a Katrina tour, and then
good.
Come back through Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Oh wow, man!
And do the sites there, and then end up in Memphis, Tennessee. And so we will almost go full circle from the killing of Emmett Till all the way back around to the killing of, I think the ending of the civil rights movement in earnest was the killing of Dr. King, his assassination.
Yeah, it's certainly the modern, what we kind of think of as the modern civil rights movement. But yeah, it's sad. It's a lot of sad stories, but there's also hope here, that we realize that we can rise up from the ashes of this and become better people. I mean, that's really what Lenten season is all about, right? Is changing those things that we need to change. So we are kind and things like that.
That's a perfect closing. Jerry, thank you so much. If people want to follow your writings, they
can. I'm mainly on social media as J Mitchell News. I'm on.
Would you type that in, Linda? Thank you.
Yeah, it's the letter J and then Mitchell, Mitchell, and then News, just all run together. That's on um, X and on Instagram and on now my cat's wanting to be part of this. uh, and what else? Blue Sky and Threads. All those. It's the same. Jay
Okay.
Mitchell News, and then Facebook is Jerry Mitchell Reporter. And every day I post kind of this day in civil rights history. So if people are interested in following that, they can follow that. And Mississippi Today is publishing that as well. So there's always a link back to the Mississippi Today website on that.
Awesome. Jerry, thank you so much. We just treasure this conversation with you. We look forward to seeing you.
Sure.
I'll be,
It'll
of
be-
course, between now and then, of course.
oh yeah, happy to.
Stuff. And but thank you so much. This has been
Well,
such
thanks for having me, and God bless you and bless everyone else. I just pray that we need to have conversations about some of these things. Sometimes we can view these things as too difficult to talk about. We need to talk.
we need to
We
talk.
need to talk to each other.
Yeah.
You know, now I'm going to lapse another story if it's okay.
Yeah. Please.
So the night before Beckwith was convicted, there was this horrible storm. And so the jury came in, they had already been deliberating a little bit. And they came in, they'd been deliberating a few hours. And there was a white woman on the jury, and she was just red faced. She was just so angry. And I was like, oh no, we're going to have another hung jury. I mean, that's what ran through my mind.
Right.
And so I'm talking that night, every night with Marilyn Everson and I talked. And she wasn't worried. She just, had her faith about, this would work out. And I was just, I was not in a good spot. And she told me a story that she had never told before. On the night that her husband was assassinated, that when, this happened, and her sees her husband gunned down and, children, and it's just horrific. You can imagine. She said, talking about how angry she was. And there were some white bystanders because this black neighborhood sat right on the edge of a white area because it's still segregated at this point.
Yeah.
And so some white kids came up, bystanders, just curious about, what's going on, And of course the Jackson police were there, and they were all white. And Murley Evers told me, if I'd had a machine gun that night, I would have killed everyone, killed them all.
Wow.
And when she told me that, I said, I understand.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd never had a loved one killed like that in front of me. I can't even begin to imagine that. And in that moment, I realized I did not begin to understand what she had been through.
Yeah.
I mean, it really sunk in at that point
Yeah.
that I really knew nothing about what she had been through. These are the kind of conversations. Oh, let me add one more thing about that story.
Yeah.
So when the verdict came in, she told me she wasn't over all this, that this was still lingering, still anger and hate and everything. And she told me when the verdict came in and she heard guilty, it was like all that hate and anger went out through every pore in her body.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's just a incredible, powerful woman, and I'm just so grateful that I can call her my friend. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for adding that story on. What a moving, powerful story. Oh my God. I think, and we're going to end. We're ending, people.
We got to go. Yeah, I know.
I think that's what Linda and I felt that day when we were sitting with our friends from Church of the Resurrection, and they were mostly white, but they had come. We had just met them only a year before, and
Right.
we were in that room at 16th Street Baptist Church, and they started crying. It just felt like they had heard my story. They listened.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. Yes.
Exactly. I can't tell you how many emails and notes or people tell me this. White folks, and a lot of them white Southerners, who said after they read my book, I never knew.
Yeah.
I had no idea all these things were happening.
Yeah.
And there's one lady who was obviously older. She said she was older. Said, I'm ashamed I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Jerry, thank you. I will
God
follow
bless
you. God bless. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care. All right, folks. Thank you so much for listening in. I want to thank Allies for Racial Justice, who helped to sponsor this event and make this event happen for us. And they're doing amazing work. That's a joint ministry between Church of the Resurrection and St. James United Methodist Church that was formed, I believe that was in 2020 after the George Floyd incident. And they're doing amazing work, both within each church, but also in the city, greater Kansas City area. And so you can connect with Allies for Racial Justice by going to the website, core.org. Type in Allies for Racial Justice, and you can get signed up to participate in the activities they have going on there. I know the Juneteenth celebration, which is one of their annual celebrations, is coming up in June. And if you follow us on our website, core.org, you can find out more information there. Want to just express appreciation to Senior Pastor Adam Hamilton and the entire Resurrection community for sponsoring these kinds of events, for supporting these kinds of events, for sending people on trips, immersion trips, and allowing people to explore other people's stories. And so that we can develop even greater capacity for compassion and sympathy. God bless you all. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. This will be edited and refined, and then we'll post it probably on the Resurrection YouTube channel and give us time to get that done. Otherwise, folks, good night, and we will see you this week in our various activities.